Welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to go through finding some of the best motivated seller leads that are out there. What I'm talking about today are probate leads. Now, when you're going to find probate leads, majority of the times you need to go specifically to the local county courthouse to obtain this information. In many states, including here in Georgia, where I am, the information is not readily available online. You have to physically go to the courthouse during the courthouse hours and go through the particular records to get the information that you need. This is one of the reasons why a lot of investors don't go after these leads, is because it can be a little bit of labor intensive to be able to acquire these leads. But in my opinion, that's one of the better reasons for going after these leads, because there's not a lot of competition. In this day and age, everybody wants to be able to just sit in front of their computer, point a couple clicks, and get everything that they need. On this one, a lot of times you need to physically go to the courthouse to get it, but not every time. There are several counties, including here in Georgia, where you can find the information online, but you need to know what you're specifically looking for. And that's what we're going to cover today. What we're going to use as an example here in the Atlanta area, there is a county that has their information online. It's a county called Cobb County. And I'm going to use Cobb County as an example to show you how to look up the document and what you're specifically looking for. So let's get started. So as I mentioned, we're going to use Cobb County here in the Atlanta, Georgia area as an example that has a county that's online. Usually, like I mentioned, you're going to have to physically go to the county courthouse to obtain this information. I'm going to show you this one online so you know what you're looking for. As you move forward on looking for the county courthouse information, you just put in that particular county that you're in and probate court. So that'll help you if this information is online. If it's not, you're going to go to that particular county's courthouse and go to the probate office. Now, understand there's a few different things that fall under the probate heading, including marriage licenses, guardianships, and things like that. You're specifically wanting to look for estate information. So if you go to your county courthouse and you want to find out where you need to go to an information desk or ask someone that's there, security guard or anything like that. When someone passes away and they need to file the proper documentation to transfer their estate, where do I fill out that information? That's usually generic enough in order to get you to the right office. Then when you go to that office, you don't want to say, hey, give me all of your probate information. Let me take a look at it. Usually they're going to tell you no, or they're going to, even though you have a right, it's public record, and you can get this information. Most folks want to try to protect this information. Sometimes they act like it's Fort Knox or something, and they don't want to readily provide this information. One of the easiest ways I've found in order to get the person there to assist me is that I just let them know, listen, I'm doing some research and I wanted to find out in a particular month, how many probate records are usually filled out in a given month. I'm doing research for class project, for my company's data information, for an attorney, whatever. You can make up whoever you want to say you're doing research for, but you're doing some research and you want to find out how many records are usually done in a given month. Because otherwise they'll usually say, what's the name or the date that you're looking for? And they want to help you on a specific record. And you're not looking for just one record. You're looking for all the records. So in order to kind of get them to get out of your way, you want to give them just a generic answer, because once you find out how to get the information, you don't need them anymore, or you may need them very little to obtain any information. Two things I'll say is that I've been to many courthouses where the information is right there on their computer systems. And once I know how to look it up on their computer systems, I'm good to go. Sometimes it's a situation where they have to they meaning the people assisting you at the desk, they have to physically pull the records from back in the back. And you don't want to go and have them pulling a record, looking at it, giving it back to them, and go and having them pull another record. They're going to get irritated with you. So what I usually will do is that you can usually do the search outside from from them, like out in the office area in the room. But once you are ready to get the actual file, I usually will want to bring them 5 or 8 or 10 records at a time. So when they go and pull these records, they're pulling them all at one time and not running back and forth. So I'll usually try to get them to get me a few at a time. You're gonna have to judge it yourself, see how friendly, how helpful the folks are. More friendly they are, then you may be able to get a little bit more done. If they're starting to show like they're getting a little irritated with you, you might want to ease off some and just do a few at a time. So just understand that you are allowed to have this information, but they're still the gatekeepers, and they can make it very difficult for you and can hold off getting that information to you if you don't work with them. So as the old saying goes, you get a lot more flies with honey than with vinegar. So throw in the charm, be nice, see what they need or what would make it easier for them. And you can even ask them, I'm going to need to see a few different records. What's going to be easiest for you? If I bring you a few at a time that I need to take a look at, will that be okay? Or just bring it to you as I come across them? So just make a note to talk to them, be friendly, and see what's the best way to get this information. Yeah. Once you have found the petition or application that the petitioner has filled out, now it's time to determine if this is even a property that you want to pursue. So you got to go through the proper process. So first step was to make sure that you got the right document, and that's what you're looking for right here. Now, after you found that, you want to go through a 4-step filtering process. First step, and I'm going to show you each one of these after I go through what these 4 filters are. First step is you need to make sure that the petitioner's address is different than the decedent's address. So in a probate situation where there's an estate, the situation is that someone has passed away. Now, in order for that person's assets to be transferred over into ownership into one of the heirs or someone else, whoever's to inherit this, it has to go through the probate process. Basically, the courts have to say, yes, everything looks fine, we're switching it over. But part of it is also to make sure any creditors are able to collect anything that may be owed to them as well. So you can't just take all of the assets and switch them over. The debts have to be handled also. So someone has to go in and fill out the paperwork. That is the petitioner or the applicant. But you want to make sure that that person's address is different than the address of the person who has passed away. Second filter is you also want to make sure that none of the heirs that are listed on there, maybe sons, daughters, cousins, aunts, uncles, whoever, anybody listed as heirs, you want to make sure that their address is different as well. The biggest thing is the best properties that you can go after are ones that are going to be vacant. So if someone is living in the property, it's less likely that they're going to be interested in selling. Not impossible, just means that it's less likely. So ideally, the best ones to go after are ones that are likely to be vacant. So if the petitioner's address is different, then they're not living there. If all of the heirs' addresses are different, then they're not living there. So it's more likely that the property is vacant. Next thing, you want to make sure that there's no unit number on the decedent's address, not the applicant's address, not the petitioner, but the decedent, the person who's passed away, the address that shows for them. You want to make sure that there's no unit number or apartment number. Now, if it is a unit number and it means it's a condo, you could go after that. But because I don't particularly like dealing with condo associations and things like that, I usually just skip them. If it's a unit number in any way, shape, or form, I skip that particular record and move on to the next one. But if you want to look into it to see if it might be a condo for sale, that's your personal choice. I just choose to avoid them. Last thing is you need to make sure that it's a house. So I always Google the address and make sure the property is actually there. It's an actual property, because when you look up the address, you may find out that it's something like an assisted living facility. So you're likely going to skip that because there's nothing to purchase because it's not a house that they own. Also, if you wanted to dig a little deeper, you can dig and find out if the person actually owned that house. So you need to look up tax records and things like that. But that tends to slow down the process. So I don't like to dig that far. I usually am going to find out if I call the petitioner, the contact person, they'll basically tell you if there's a property available for sale or not. So I don't dig that deeply to find out that they are the actual owner, because it could have been something where that was that person's address when they passed away, but maybe they were renting the house. So even though they're connected with that address, they never actually owned that property. So again, there wouldn't be anything to purchase because that person doesn't own that property. I like to make it quick. It's a lot easier to go through these because a lot of times these properties, when the heirs or the petitioner want to sell this property, they usually are going to do it fairly quickly. So the longer you waste time digging and digging on something that still may not be a viable lead, you're wasting time and don't have the opportunity to go through other potential properties that could be great leads for you. So this is my 4-step filtering process. Check that the petitioner's address is different than the decedent's. Make sure none of the heirs have the same address as the decedent. Make sure that there's no unit number on the address for the decedent, and make sure it's an actual property, that it's not an assisted living facility or any other property that's not available for sale. All right, I'll show you how to go through all of that in the next video. Okay, now that you know what the filters are that you're looking for, let's see that in action, and let's see how it plays out once you've found that petition and go through that document. So as we mentioned before, you're going to look at the petition that you've pulled up. And in this case, you've got a petition where it has the petitioner, Charles Hamilton Coleman III. So this is the person who has actually gone to the courthouse, filled out the documents to start the probate process. They filled out the probate petition and are requesting from the court to be the executor of the estate to take the entire estate through the probate process. Now, that person is filing this because this person, Mr. James Mitchell Tanner, unfortunately has passed away. And so Charles is needing to go through the probate process for James. So once you do that, you're going to look at the fact that Charles' address is in Mecklenburg County in North Carolina. The decedent, Mr. James Tanner, his address is in Cobb County in Ackworth, Georgia. So you see that the addresses are different, which was our first filtering process. You need to make sure that the petitioner's address is different than the decedent's address. And that is the case in this example. You also need to make sure that the heirs, that's filtering process number 2, that the heirs' address is different as well. Well, this is one of the heirs. This is Mr. James Tanner's son. His address is 105 Morgan Drive, where Mr. James Tanner, his address was on Old Cherokee Street. So we verified filter number 2, that the heir's address is different than the decedent. Filter number 3 was to make sure that there were no apartment numbers or unit numbers or things like that. On this address, it does say it's 4321 Old Cherokee Street, and it does not say unit number X or apartment number X or whatever. So we verified that there's no unit number there. Now, just because there's no unit number or apartment number doesn't mean it's an actual property. There are some apartment numbers where every apartment has a regular address and doesn't say unit number so-and-so or apartment so-and-so. You still need to double check and make sure this is an actual house. So far, it's gone through 3 of our filtering process. The petitioner's address is different, the heir's address is different, and there's no unit number on the decedent's address. So the 4th and final filter is to make sure that it's an actual property. So we will go through it, and this is the actual property at the address of the decedent. 4321 Old Cherokee Street. This is the property right here. Obviously, that is a house. So we know that this is a physical house that can be pursued. It's checked all of our filtering blocks, and we're ready to move forward. Now, once you have gone through and verified those 4 filters, the last thing is if you scroll down those pages in the petition, you will see that there is the address, Mr. Charles Coleman III. His information is there, his address, and a contact phone number. This is the phone number that Mr. Coleman presented himself. So you know it's a good phone number. You don't have to worry about skip tracing the information. You know, you've got a phone number right there. You can call Mr. Coleman and find out if the property is available for sale. You can send them a text if you like to, but I always prefer to call so that I can talk to them directly. Also, you will see in a lot of these that there is an attorney information on here. A lot of people will hire an attorney to take care of it, the probate process, but I still like to reach out to the petitioner directly because they are still the decision maker. The attorney is there to help them, but the petitioner is the actual decision maker. So I try to reach out to them first. Now, many times I will still take note of the attorney's information because you may reach out to the petitioner and they say, "Oh, I've got an attorney, call my attorney." Now, if that were to happen, I usually will ask them for the attorney's phone number, name and phone number. Now, if they have it, they'll give it to me. Now, why would I ask for it if I may have it written down already? Is because many times the phone number that's on this document might be the attorney's office number or something like that. The petitioner may have the attorney's direct cell phone number. So I always ask for that. But if they're unable to provide it, I've got a number that I can try to reach out to. Check me on the next video. I'll tell you the next steps. Okay, now that you found a viable lead, you found the property information, you've got the contact or the petitioner's information and their phone number, and you're getting ready to give them a call. Biggest thing is, what do you say to them? Can't go and tell somebody, "Hey, heard your mama passed away. You want to sell your house?" Because they're likely going to get very upset with you. And they're likely going to come try to find you and tell you a few choice words. It's all about how you approach it. Now, I tend to approach my leads the same, regardless of what the source of those leads are, whether it might be foreclosures, whether it's probate leads, whatever types of leads they may be, I tend to follow a similar process. The key thing is I let them know that I am a local investor, or I'm just an investor in general, in case you happen to not be local to where those properties are. I let them know that I am a real estate investor looking for my next project, but I've done research, and in my research with my team, I come across a property, and in that research, we found that they likely the contact person, the proper contact person. And once you do that, you let them bring up whether they're in facing foreclosure, whether it's a probate lead or so. I don't bring that up in general. I just make it seem as though in the course of my research, I'm coming across properties that I'm looking to do my next fix and flip or buy and hold or whatever the case may be. And in looking for properties, I came across this property, did some research, and found out that they are likely the proper contact person. Is that correct? So this is a little bit of information for you, a script that'll show you kind of how to present it, what you're going to say to the petitioner so that you come across as just nonchalant, just looking at a property, and let them bring up if they're interested in talking about selling the property. If they are, then you move forward. If they're not, because remember, you're calling these people out of the blue. You don't know what the situation is. They don't know you from Adam. So you don't know if they're really going to be interested in calling or talking to you. So you want to be empathetic as you give them a call. So just start off and just let them know that you've done some research and want to find out if this property is available for sale and if they're the right person to speak to. If they are interested in selling, then you ask them too, if it's a good time to talk, because just because they're interested in selling, you may have caught them at dinner or in the middle of lunch at work or whatever. So it might not be a good time to talk. And then you want to find out what would be a good time to talk to get some more information on the property. If they say no, then you just wish them well and you move on. Yeah, you can leave your name and number. So if they change their mind, then you can follow back up with them. Or if they want to reach out to you, because a no today doesn't mean a no tomorrow. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the door open. So, but if they say yes, and this is a good time to talk, then you go into the questions that you need to find out. You want to know more information about the property, why they're selling, because just because they inherited the property isn't automatically a reason to sell. Because lots of people inherit properties and they don't sell. So why do they need to sell? What's going on? Because you want to make sure you're solving whatever problem they have. Now, as you go through, you're going to get all the information about the property while they're selling. And ideally, you're going to find out what's their asking price. What are they hoping to get out of the property? And so sometimes that can be a little tough to get out of them. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, you're the investor, just make me an offer." Well, that's why I've also got this part here where I usually tell them, listen, it's my job to be the first point of contact, to reach out to people. And if they are not going to give me an asking price. Usually I just have to mark that on the folder, and my team is going to focus on the people who do have an asking price. So it's likely that we're not going to get in touch with you as quickly on there because we assume that somebody that doesn't have an asking price is not really that interested in selling. That usually kind of gets the people off because I don't care what number they say. They could say $1 million or they could say $10. It doesn't matter. I just kind of want to know what mind frame the seller is in when it comes to the price. Because if they're asking 200,000 and I'm thinking a little closer to 180, well, we're close in price. I can come up with something, but they may say, as long as I can get 100,000 out of it, I'm good. And I might have been willing to go all the way up to 130. So I'm going to be a little closer to their price. I may even give them a little extra. And it's like, well, actually, I think I can offer you 110. I want to make sure you get the best price on there. That's going to get them excited. It's still under my max price, and it gets them excited about wanting to do business with me. All right, catch me on the next video. Well, many people ask me, they say, Stephan, how far back should I look on probate leads? Should I look back to the most recent ones that have come in? Should I look back a year ago? Well, for me, and this is only based on personal experience, I usually like to look at somewhere between 2 to 4 months of the probate paperwork being filed. So if it's December, I want to look back at October 1st. If it's June, I want to look back on April 1st. So I usually am going to start at about the 2-month mark and then look back to about the 4-month mark. That's usually the sweet spot. What I've kind of experienced is that if you look at it too close to it being filed, you're dealing with a lot of people that are still in the grieving process, still trying to make decisions on the estate, and they're not really ready to make a decision yet. It's not always the case. This is just, we're talking about the general rule. And if you wait too far back, like longer than 4 months, usually they have already made a decision and the property is gone. It's no longer available. So usually right between that 2 to 4 month time period is where I'm usually targeting. I'm going to use this property as an example because when I look back on it, it fit perfectly of what I was referring to. When we looked at the property, this is that property, and we see on here that this property was sold in June of 2016. The heirs of this property did actually choose to sell this property. Now, when you look at the petition information, it's always stamped for when it was filed. Well, it was stamped in February of the time period. So February 2016, it was filed. If I would have been looking at it, I would have been looking at it right around April on this. So I would have been looking in April to find out what was going on. And if you go back here, you will see that the property was, like I said, sold in June. So that's 4 months later. So if I caught them about 2 months after they filed it, they likely would have been ready to talk and figure out something to sell that property and then go forth and go ahead and sell it. That shows you kind of the time window that you're usually looking for on there. About 2 months out, you usually will catch folks when they're ready to make an actual decision. And then once you have done that, you can negotiate with them for the right price and then take the property down. Okay, now that you know what to say, you know how to kind of draw a number out of the petitioner. The key thing is to understand that when you make most of these phone calls, you're usually going to get a voicemail. So you need to know what kind of voicemail message to leave when you reach the voicemail. I keep it simple here. You just want to say, I want to get in touch with whoever is usually the petitioner's names that you're saying. In that case before, I want to get in touch with Charles Coleman. My name is Stephan Roberts. I'm here talking about the property at 123 Main Street. Please return my call as soon as possible. Again, my name is Stephan Roberts and my phone number is X. You want to make it simple because you want them to know what the call is about. I tell them it's about the property, but I don't get into too many details because I don't want them to filter me out on the phone. They may say, oh, it's just another investor trying to offer me something on this property. I don't want to talk to them right now. And they may rule you out. And if you don't get a call back, you don't know if they're ruling out because they don't want to sell or they just don't want to talk at that time or what the case may be. But if you keep it simple, Just let them know your name, that you're interested and you'll want to talk to them about the property at whatever address. They could be thinking anything. Well, what happened if the property is burned down or something? Maybe it's somebody from the city and they need to talk to me. They're more inclined to give you a call back if you keep it simple. If you start talking about making offers and all this other stuff, you end up giving them too much information and they're likely going to make decisions without talking to you. And then you're left in the dark of even knowing whether or not they really want to sell or not. I also like this because many other investors who train on this type of thing will usually tell you to mail out a postcard or things like that on the property. Well, I like to be a little more proactive, and that's why I want to give them a call instead of just mail a postcard. Because, too, if they don't respond to a postcard, does that mean that they're not interested? Does that mean that they don't want to sell? No, it just means that they didn't respond to the postcard. As long as you know what to say and how to say it, I encourage you to give them a call and talk to them. A lot of times people will say, even if they're going to be proactive, they may try to do door knocking. Well, the challenge with door knocking is that we've already said we're looking for the properties that are going to likely be vacant. One of the last properties I did, the actual heirs, the petitioners that filled out the paperwork, they lived in another state. And so the property was here in the state that I was in, but they lived somewhere. So me going by the property wasn't going to do anything, wasn't going to reach them in any way. It's not like they were going to see a notice or anything like that on the door. I needed to give them a call, which is what I did. Got in touch with them. They explained the situation. I was able to negotiate a price that worked for both sides, get it under contract, and get it sold. You want to make sure that you give them a call, talk to them, find out what they need, listen to what they're saying so you can make sure you're answering the problem, not just throwing an offer number at them. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to them. Make the offer and keep on moving. Time is of the essence. It's time to take action, time to get out there, look them up. If you have to physically go to the courthouse, go there, find out the information. You know what document you're looking for. You know what information on the document that you're looking for. You may have to make a few adjustments based on your particular county. If it's online, great. If it's not online, then you're going to have to go to the courthouse. Also know that even when you go to the courthouse, sometimes they don't provide all the information in the computer system. Many times what they won't provide is the phone number. They'll put all the information in the computer system, but they won't actually show you a copy of that document. That document is always going to have a phone number on there. But if they've transferred the information into the computer system, they may not have put the phone number in there. So you're going to have to do a little extra. I have come across some counties where it's very difficult to get all of the information to actually see that document. I can get the petitioner's name and address, and then unfortunately I've got to skip trace it and hope that I get the right phone number. But anytime you can actually see that physical document, you will get the phone number and it's an accurate phone number. So get out there, take action, and make it happen. Have a good one, everybody.